Okay, thank you very much, Denise. Now I would like to introduce Simon Cornwall, who has been a district tech person and has helped the district over many years run different events and also at his Central Division conferences has fantastic music. There won't be a problem for any contest he attends. So I'd like to hand over to Simon Cornwall. We'll be talking about all about the techniques of Zoom and how to make Zoom work for you in your contest. Over to you, Simon.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, everyone. Okay, so we've had about 45 minutes of some theory and so forth. So I just want you to have a bit of a stretch, just to wake your arms up a little bit. We're sitting in front of a computer screen, but we want to be a little bit active, and I don't want to put everyone to sleep this afternoon. So I just want to make sure that everybody's got their attention and focused and ready to go. So I thank Jim and Denise for inviting me along this afternoon to present some bits and pieces about Zoom, but I'll be also doing some other things as well outside of the Zoom in regarding to PowerPoint and so forth, how you can deliver certificates of participation and first, seconds and thirds. And I'll show you briefly and quickly on how to set those things up. It's quite simple if you know how. So we're going to start. I'm going to actually share my PowerPoint presentation with you that I've got in the background here. Okay, so our game plan for today is to talk about breakout rooms and what breakout rooms are and why we use or why we can utilize breakout rooms. Be mindful that this is one way that you can conduct your contests. So if you're running an area conference or a contest or a division contest, you can use breakout rooms. You don't have to. I've heard some great ideas about the judges can just text their results through to the chief judge and to the telecounters, and they can do it all via mobile phone. I mean, oops, I just banged that. You can take a photo of the ballot form and email it, message it, or directly to the chief judge. So that's another way you can do that. And you can do that offline, so they can have a bit of a conference call on old school technology, mobile phones, if we can call that old school technology. But we can also utilize breakout rooms. So that's another thing we can do. I'm going to talk to you about the timer, now the technical sides of the timer. Now, Lisa has explained the virtual backgrounds and how they work, but I'm going to talk about how to place the timer in the right spot so the contestant can see the timer. There's nothing worse than having a gallery view, say, for example, of 50 people on screen over 2 or 3 pages, and I can't find the timer. So if I can't find the timer, how can I speak to my time? We're also going to talk about screen sharing the results, the participation certificates, the first, the seconds, and the thirds. And we're also going to briefly touch on glitches and dropouts and what they actually look like. Now, there has been provisions put into the rules this year in regarding to glitches and dropouts and adding on time and all those sorts of things. And we're going to talk about that just briefly as well. So let's talk about breakout rooms, ladies and gentlemen. Now, breakout rooms are amazing. Hand up those of you who have attended club officer training. Yeah, so we've got a whole bunch of hands up out there, which is fantastic. Club officer training utilizes breakout rooms because what we can do is we can have our presidents in one room, we can have our vice presidents in another room, we can have our vice president's membership and so forth, all in little separate breakout rooms. And that's really good because then they can break off and do their little thing. And then after it's all done, they come back to the main room. And we can utilize the same thing when it comes to contests. We can have breakout rooms for officials. So to enable breakout rooms, we first have to make sure that our profile has the breakout rooms turned on. And this is the major thing. If this isn't turned on, no matter what you do, you can't run a breakout room. Now, the district accounts have them all turned on. So if you're lucky enough to pursue or to use a district account, for your area contest or your division contest, then you already have this turned on, so you don't even need to do this step. However, if you're using a paid account, a club has their own account, then you need to make sure that you have access to this part of the software. And this is found not in the Zoom client, but it's actually found on the Zoom website. So you need to go along to zoom.us as the owner of the account, for example. And you need to go into settings. And once you go into the settings part of the zoom.us, and I'm going to show you this live, so don't worry, I'm just showing you a bit of theory in the background. Then you go down to in-meeting advanced. And this is where the breakouts live, in the advanced section. So as you can see here, I'll just move my face out of the way so I can see it. Breakout room, allow host to split meeting participants into separate, smaller rooms. And see that little slide, the little switch on the side there, the little blue slide, that needs to be selected. If that's not selected, you're stuck before you start. So we need to make sure that that's selected. And once it's selected, then this is where the fun happens, because then we can actually utilize the breakout rooms inside of the Zoom program. So once you've done that, you can close off your web browser, everything's happy. And then at the meeting itself, when you actually are in the actual contest meeting room itself, in the Zoom meeting like we are now, you have the ability to see along the bottom. Now, you can't see it at the moment, ladies and gentlemen, because I'm the only host of the entire meeting at the moment. But you'll be able to see along the bottom, if you're the host, a special little button called breakout rooms. And that enables you to utilize the breakout rooms. So when you create breakout rooms, I would suggest that you create 2 breakout rooms. And the reason I suggest we create 2 breakout rooms is because we can have the judges in one room, and then you can do all your tally counting and other things in another room. And I'll explain why in a moment for you. So we create 2 breakout rooms and we assign them manually. There is a new option in Zoom that's just come out in the last couple of days that allows participants to choose their own room, which is fantastic for things like club office training. They can choose to which education session that they're going to go to. But in this case, we want to still assign them manually because we don't want people accidentally going into a breakout room who should not be there. So we're going to assign them manually. And then we hit the create button. So it's created 2 rooms, but we don't know what they're called. They're just room 1 and room 2. So now what we need to do is we need to modify these rooms a little bit with how we want to utilize them. So we select the rename button, which when you just move your mouse over the top of where it says room 1, the rename will come up. And then you select rename and you type in there tally room. And then on the second room below, you type in judges room. And it looks like that when it's done. So you've got your tally room and you've got your judges room. And then what we need to do is we need to do some final little tweaking to our breakout rooms. And that is down the bottom left-hand side, you've got an options button. So we select that little options button down the bottom left-hand side, and that will give us options here for tick on and tick off. And these are the options that you should choose if you choose to use the breakout rooms. Allow the participants to return to the main session at any time, and I'll explain why shortly. And the other one is automatically move all assigned participants into breakout rooms. Everything else should be just turned off. Once you've done that, then you need to assign people to the breakout rooms. Now, this sounds like a lot of work, but you can do all of this as a Zoom master before the contests begin. You need to assign your judges to the breakout room, and you need to assign them to the judges room. So I've got judge 1 here. So I press assign, the assign button, and I've got one person and I'm going to assign them judge 1. And we're going to do this live very shortly, so don't worry too much if you're not quite following along. They're ready to go, but they haven't gone into that room yet because it's just sitting in limbo. It's just sitting there waiting for when the rooms need to be used. And once that's done, after the contest is complete, we hit the open all rooms button and magic happens. What happens is the judges disappear out of the main room and they go into the judges room. And that's where the judges can then do their final 1-minute silence. They can also have their time to tally up their vote. They can get their shoes and socks off. They can start counting all the numbers to make sure that they have got their ballot filled out correctly, first, second, and third, it's signed, and all those sorts of things. But they don't interact with the other judges in that room. Of course, it's a silent room, a completely 100% silent room. It just gives those judges an extra few minutes to tally up their votes. Now, once they've done that, what we do is we come into, as a Zoom master, you come into the judges room and you also bring in the chief judge. So the chief judge comes into that room and you can do that by moving them into that room. And you can also go into there yourself. what happens is the chief judge says, are you ready to cast your vote? And the judges will say, yes, we are. Now, to cast your vote, you need to then move that judge into the tally room because the votes are anonymous. Because if we were casting our votes in front of other judges, what would happen is that the other judges would hear who you are voting for. And we can't have that because that could influence the other judges. So we don't want that. So we want to move them into the other room one at a time. So we move judge one into the tally room and the 2 tally counters are in there with the chief judge. And the 2 tally counters sit there and the chief judge sits there and the judge says, I cast 3 votes for this person, 2 votes for this person, and 1 vote for this person. They can hold up their judge's ballot, the casting ballot part, to the camera to make sure that they've got a signed form. It's all done. It's legitimately. They can verify it by handwritten, and to tally counters then write down the results. Once they've got the results, the judge then leaves that room. And they can do that themselves by selecting the leave room button. And they don't press the leave meeting button, they hit leave breakout room. And what that means is they go back into the main session of the meeting. And that's where they're currently doing interviews and they're doing all the speech profile contests and all that sort of stuff. They're just having a bit of a chat in there. And the judge just rejoins. They don't say anything, they just rejoin into that room. Once that judge is gone, you move the next judge into the first room, into the tally room, and they get to cast their votes. And so it's all anonymous and it's all verified in front of 2 tally counters and the chief judge. So let's see this in action, ladies and gentlemen. Let me talk you through it. Okay, so let me just kill my PowerPoint presentation here. Let us share a screen. Give me a thumbs up if you can see me on screen and you can see all the bits and pieces along the bottom of the screen. Yep, fantastic. Okay. As a host of a meeting, you have the option to do the breakout rooms. So I'm going to click, let me just expand this out. I'm going to click breakout rooms. I'm going to create 2 breakout rooms and assign them manually. Then I hit the create button. I'm going to rename room number 1 to tally room, or tally room. And I'm going to rename this one to judge's room. Now, you lucky people in this room are all judges. Now, we've currently got 40 people in watching this presentation. So I'm going to assign each and every single one of you as judges, apart from a few people. So I'm going to assign everyone here as a judge. That'd be an amazing contest if we're all judges, except for Denise. Denise is our chief judge. And Lisa. Lisa is a tally counter. And Warren. Warren is a tally counter. So we've got something like 36 judges and we've got 3 tally counters. So what we're going to do is I'm now going to assign my 2 tally counters, which is Lisa and Warren. They're my 2 tally counters. And Denise is a chief judge. So she's going to go into the judge's room as well as the chief judge. Actually, no, she's not. She's going to go into the tally counter's room. And the reason being is I forgot to explain one thing. The chief judge needs to know the times first. So let's call Lisa and Warren our timers. So let's rename this just briefly. We'll call it the tally and timers room. So those are our 2 timers for the day, and Denise is our chief judge. Everybody else is a judge. What happens when I select the open all rooms button is 36 of us are going to go into one room and 3 are going to go into the other room. And those 3 people are the 2 timers and our chief judge. And then what happens is we'll break off and those 3 people will have a discussion in their own little private room. Denise will say, can I get the times for those contests? Were there any time disqualifications? And she'll write that down on her little piece of paper and she'll know if there's any time disqualifications. Then what I can do is, as the Zoom master, I'll pop into this room here as well. I'll ask Denise, are you ready to go into the judges' room? And she'll say, yes, I am. And then I will get the timers to leave that room. And then I will get Denise to come into the judges' room with me. I'll keep banging my microphone. So I'll get Denise to come into the actual, I'm going to move her into the judges' room. So I'm going to leave Lisa and I'm going to leave Warren as now the tally counters. So they're now the tally counters. I'm now going to open all these rooms and magic will happen and I'll see you on the other side. Lisa and Warren, don't worry. You'll be there only for a few minutes by yourself. So here we are, folks. Let's go to gallery view. So now we're all judges. So we're all sitting in here. It's nice and quiet. Nobody's saying anything because we're busy counting up our votes. We're ready to cast our votes. The chief judge is in this room with you. I'm in the room because I'm the Zoom master. And Denise gives the judges an extra minute or two and says, is there anybody ready to cast their vote? So what I'll do is I'll ask right here now, is there anybody ready to cast their vote? Put your hand up. Charmaine, you're ready to cast your vote. So what I'm going to do, Charmaine, is I'm going to move you into the tally counters room, okay? So bear with me. I will move you. I will find you in the judges' room. Now, don't worry because we've got 37 people in this room at the moment. We're going to have 6 or 7 really in the main room there. So I'm just going to move Charmaine. So let me just share the screen one more time to show you what I'm doing. Okay. So what I'm doing is I go into the breakout rooms. I find Charmaine on this list. There she is. I'm moving her to the tally timers room. And off she goes. She's gone. So now I can verify that because I can see in that room at the moment, actually, I should move Denise as the chief judge. She's gone. So now there's 4 people sitting in that room. She's on their way. She's just joining it now. Can you see there's 4 people in there now in that room? We can't see it or hear what's going on because we're in this room by ourselves. However, in that room at the moment, Charmaine is our judge, Denise is our chief judge, and Lisa and Warren are our 2 tally counters. And they are currently getting the votes off of Charmaine. Now, when Charmaine has finished doing her vote, she then goes down to this little button here, leave room, presses the leave room button and hits leave breakout room. You don't do it in this room because this is the judge's room. But when you come in to the into the tally room, you cast your vote, you press the leave room button and you leave the breakout room. That then takes you back to the main room. Okay. Do you see how Charmaine's moving herself? She's now moving out of there and she's moving back into the main room where everybody else is sitting and having a chat and a conversation, watching the interviews go on and so forth. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to move everybody into the other room. Well, I'm not going to move everybody because that will take too long. But I can now move my next person. So I'm going to move, let's say, Jim. I'm now moving Jim into the tally room.
Oh, here comes Jim.
So that was Charmaine.
Okay, Jim.
Jim.
Please tell us where your points went.
We've got Simon, Jenny, and Margaret.
You're
Take
muted.
yourself off mute.
Jenny is 3.
Yes.
Margaret is 2. And Simon is 1.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Show me your form. Show me your form. Hold it up.
That will do. Go for a comic.
That's it. I can see that.
Yeah, it disappeared.
It disappeared in the virtual background. But okay, you may now leave room button.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Leave break.
I just wanted to make sure I had my I's dotted and T's crossed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, now we're all back into the main room.
Yep.
Now what we can do is that's one contest done. So that's the evaluation contest is done. Now we've got the humor. It's not the evaluation. The humorous is done. Now we've got the international to do. What we can do with the international is if I click here, let me just show you on my screen share one more time. If I click the breakout rooms, they still exist. They still exist, meaning that I can now move Denise back to the judges room. I can move Jim back to the judges room. I can leave our 2 tally counters ready to go. And the next time the contest is over, I hit open all rooms and we all do it again.
Wow.
So you don't have to recreate the rooms. You can hit the button and recreate. You're only giving yourself work to do. But if you do it once and you do it, whenever you hit the open all rooms, you automatically go back to the rooms that you're assigned. And I found that's probably going to be the easiest way to do it using Zoom. Now, if you use the mobile phone strategy, you get the judge to call through the results to the chief judge and the tally counters on the conference call, and that works for you, fantastic. But this is the option that you can use in Zoom. Okay.
Simon,
Yes.
could you just quickly create a protest and disqualifications room?
It's the same room. It's the judge's room. So if a
And the
contestant,
speaker.
yeah. So if the contestant says, I want to protest due to originality, what they do is because the chat has been disabled, the only way they can do that, apart from unmuting themselves and yelling, which is not etiquette, is to privately message the Zoom master. Because when you disable chat, you can still message the admin or the host. There's no problem. You can still privately message them. Even the judges, when you move the judges into the other room, they have the ability to unmute themselves and say, we've got all of our judges sitting in that one room. One of the judges could unmute themselves and says, I've actually got a bit of an issue with originality here, because that's private. There's 6 judges or 7 judges in that room. They're not blurting it out in front of 50 people saying, I've got a problem with originality. So if the contestant wishes to do that, they privately message the Zoom master. The Zoom master says, I will leave the room. You'll stay here. I will leave the room and I will go and have a chat to the chief judge. The chief judge will then be moved into where the judges are, and then that contestant will be brought into the judge's room. They'll explain why they have that problem with originality. Then that contestant will leave. Then you will go and get the contestant who's got the protest against them, bring them into the judge's room, and then the judges can then ask the question about originality there. So nothing gets done in the main room. It's all done in the private room to the side. Okay? All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to continue on with certificates. Now we will have a whole bunch of time at the end of this presentation for Q&A over the entire presentation. So if there's questions or if you didn't quite understand, we are recording this so you can play this back at your own time and you can ask your questions during that time. So the next thing I'm going to do, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to share my PowerPoint once again. And we're away. The timer. So the timer is an interesting thing because the timer needs to be seen on screen at all times. Obviously, that's why they're called the timer. We need to be able to see them do their speech. So to do the timer, there's an interesting and fantastic new feature that Zoom has just released in the last week, and I love it so much. It's called, it enables you to move the people around in the gallery view to wherever you want them to. And we'll talk about that very shortly. The primary timer, there's 2 timers in a contest as per normal. The primary timer must be able to be seen at all times. That's a given. This can be set up in the gallery view, but can be transferred to speaker view. And I'll show you what I mean very shortly. So this can be set up in the gallery view and can be utilized in speaker view. All contestants must be on version 5.3 and above of Zoom. That is the latest version, is 5.3.1. That was only released 2 days ago. This is enabled from 5.3. Now, Anne explained how to update your version of Zoom earlier in the day, in the presentation. Please, as a convener or whoever it is, the area director or division director or even the club contest, if you're going to utilize this feature, this must be pointed out to all contestants before the contests. You must update your version to Zoom to 5.3 or above for it to work. The secondary timer should not be needed to show their virtual backgrounds unless the primary timer drops out. So Lisa spoke and Warren spoke about the timer having the virtual backgrounds behind you. That's the primary timer's job. But the secondary timer must be ready to go with slides, just in case, with their virtual background. Because if the timer drops out and the contestant keeps speaking because they didn't realize that the timer dropped out, who takes over? The secondary timer or the backup timer. So the second timer also times the speech and must be ready to show virtual backgrounds at any time, just in case. And the second timer should be the second view in the gallery view setup, which is what I'm going to show you. So let's see this in action. Here we are again at my screen. Hello, everybody. You can all see us in gallery view? Fantastic. Okay, so let's make Lisa our timer. Lisa's down here in the bottom left-hand side of the screen. Now, if I put her in speaker view, Lisa's not on the screen. Jim's on the screen because he's speaking, but I'm on the screen. Charmaine's on the screen. Denise is on the screen. Normally, I'd have to go all the way and go, oh my goodness, where on earth is our time? Oh, there she is. There's my timer. Now, that's terrible because how on earth can you control your nerves as a speaker and search for the timer before you begin speaking? That's just not a very good option. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into gallery view and watch this. Oh, look at that. Do you see that? I can now drag. Now, you need to be on 5.3 to be able to see this, but you should be able to see this in the screen share that I'm doing right now. I'm dragging Lisa to wherever I want. Just click and drag. I've now dragged it to the front of the queue. My secondary timer is Jim. Jim's up there now. So Jim's got his cards ready to go, his virtual background. Lisa has her cards now ready and active. Now watch this. Oh, Lisa's first and Jim is second. Okay. So I can now see Lisa perfectly fine. And Jim, obviously, don't worry about Jim on the big screen here because you're seeing what I'm seeing and you wouldn't normally see that. So I'll put it back in gallery view. So if I'm a speaker, can I get everybody to now turn off your webcams apart from Lisa and Jim, please? All right, so a few people, there we go. The rules are, and the rules state that all webcams must be turned off during a contest. So Mike up there, I can see he's still got his webcam on. Leanne's still got her webcam on. Mr. Rolf's got his webcam on. That's how a contest looks in gallery mode. It's not very appealing because we've got a timer, a secondary timer, and me as the speaker. So what I would do is if I was the speaker in the contest is I would put myself into speaker view and then I don't know why Jim keeps coming up there. I have no idea. Maybe he's pinned. I don't know. But because he's recording. Don't worry about Jim. Say Jim's our speaker. Lisa, can you please put on your green? So she's timing the speech, delivering the speech. Jim's delivering his speech, and now he can see the green light. You can see it okay, Jim? Give us a thumbs up. Excellent. So it's more appealing to be able to see that mode than it is to see that mode. Okay. All right. So what we can do is once we've got our timer at the very start of the meeting, or the start of the gallery mode, as a host and only as the host, you can select view, follow host video order. If I click that, now everybody sees that gallery view in 5.3 and above. Okay, so this is why you need to update your version of Zoom to the latest version. So even if I go to speaker view, I can still see Lisa and Jim first. Then I can go to gallery view and I still see Lisa and Jim first. Then I can release the order and then it just rearranges and does whatever it wants to do. You can turn your webcams back on, ladies and gentlemen. So that's a really good feature. So as a Zoom master, drag your timer to the very start. So Denise is our new timer. There's our 2 new timers for the contest. I go into gallery, into speaker view. Now I've got Lisa and Denise. Going back into gallery view, I've still got Lisa and Denise. So the whole thing about the timer is it follows once you've got it set. So as the host, set your timers up, press view, and then go follow host video order. And that then makes everybody follow your video order. Okay. So the judges will still be able to see the timers on the screen. And that is where integrity comes into it. As a judge, you are asked to ignore times in your evaluation. So you will see the green, you will see the yellow, and you will see the red, but you obviously won't know if they've gone over time on their red. However, as a judge, integrity tells you to judge irrelevant to time. So let me stop that share. And let's go back to our PowerPoint. Excellent. Let's go back to our PowerPoint a second time. Share. I don't know why it's doing that. Okay, sharing screens. Sharing screens is fantastic as a way to issue certificates and also trophies. We can put all of our certificates in a PowerPoint presentation. So we've got our PowerPoint presentation here with all of our certificates sitting here. There's our speech contest. Certificate of participation presented to John Smith for the International Speech Contest on the 24th of October 2020. We can go ahead and we know the contestants' names in advance. So we can set up 6 slides or 5 slides, duplicate the slides in a PowerPoint and just replace the person's name. So at least they get recognised through a PowerPoint presentation that they can see on screen that they've been acknowledged. And I think that's wonderful. I think that's really nice that they can see that. However, we don't know who the 3rd place, the 2nd place, or the 1st place winner is until it's done. You can go ahead and you can set it up. Say Sally Jones is our contest hostmaster, and we've got the date and we've got the speech contest, but we don't know who it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my PowerPoint presentation in the background without it being shared. And I'm going to, you can see it now, obviously, but you would do this without the share screen enabled. And you, as the Zoom master, would need to be given the results in time for you to get into your little PowerPoint. And we go, well done, John Smith. So we edit it up. John came 3rd. And we can pretty it up. We can move it into the center. We can make it all nice and like that. And then we've got Joanne Blogs. Good on you, Joanne. She did really well. She came 2nd. This is all done in the background. And then Jane Citizen won the contest. Well done, Jane. You've done this in the background. No one can see you doing this. This is just private. Then you could have yourself, let me just copy this slide. I'm going to pop it in here, paste it in there, and I'm going to go, and the winners are, let's call, and the winners are lovely. So what we do is when you do a screen share, you can see the results here. So if I hit the screen share button, so if I stop the share, if I hit a screen share button now, and I go into here, you can see the results because I've still got to start the slideshow, and that's can be a bit of a upset because we already know who won because we could see the slideshow running before it was running. That's not very nice. So when you do a screen share of a PowerPoint presentation, you can start the PowerPoint presentation first, come back into Zoom, press the share button, and now it's done quietly in the background. Nobody knows who won. And there, John Smith, third place. Congratulations, John. And in second place, ladies and gentlemen, please congratulate Joanne Bloggs. And in first place to represent area blah, blah, blah at the Brisbane Division Final, Jane Citizen. So be very careful if you are the Zoom master about how and when you share PowerPoint presentations, because if your PowerPoint presentation isn't in presentation mode, you can ruin the experience for everybody because they've seen the results. So that's one thing that you can take into account. The last thing I'm going to speak about before I hand back to Jim and Denise is glitches and dropouts. Now, glitches and dropouts can happen. And it is built into the rules about how to handle glitches and dropouts. And my biggest thing that I need to express to everybody here, you're the Zoom master. You are not the chief judge. Okay, so let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to show you this presentation once again. So here we are, glitches and dropouts. Always have a number of co-hosts. In case you drop out, the host can be passed around. Whoever has been a host can reclaim the host. So as was said before with Anne, she was the host of a meeting and she dropped out. But because Mark was the person who created that meeting and started and launched that meeting, when she dropped out, he automatically reclaimed that host. So it's always good to have plenty of co-hosts on board. And we've got all of our presenters are co-hosts today, as well as me, who is the host. So you can only have one host, but you can have multiple co-hosts. Glitches usually start with sound. You'll hear garbled sound. You'll hear like an echo, or they might start sounding like a computer. They might start going. So that's a garbled sound. You'll hear the squelching. That's usually an indicator of a few things. One, their bandwidth is under pressure and they're having problems keeping up, their computers keeping up with the bandwidth. Or they are ready to drop out. Now, the next indicator is that the contestant could freeze. Now, they could just freeze on screen mid-sentence, or they could just disappear completely. You're the Zoom master. You are the person who is the duck, smooth on the water on top and paddling like crazy underneath. The chief judge will stop the contest if required. It is not your call. You are the Zoom master. You are not the chief judge. If a contestant drops out, you must be ready to enact what the chief judge says. If the chief judge says, timers, please pause your timing. And that was probably usually what would be the first thing that happens. And then you will sit quietly. You will maintain silence most likely as a Zoom master, and you will have a look at the breakout, not the breakout room, the admin room, like the waiting room. And you will see if that contestant comes back online. And what will happen is you'll bring them in and you'll let them calm down, relax, because they're probably really panicky. And then you will say to the chief judge, chief judge, the contestant is now back online. And the chief judge might ask the contest, are you okay? Are you ready to go again? We stopped pausing here. We won't give you the time, but we will add an extra 30 seconds to your time because we had a glitch, we had a dropout. Again, it is not your call as a Zoom master to make that. It is the chief judge's call. Timers will always follow the instructions of the chief judge. So if you are asked to be a chief judge at one of these area conferences or contests or even the division contest, that's one thing you'll need to remember. You have the final say as the chief judge, just like in face-to-face. Sometimes we had a microphone failure at the Central Division Conference. I had to wait until the chief judge told me to stop the contest before I could play with it and figure it out, because it's the chief judge's contest. They're in charge of it. And ladies and gentlemen, that is my presentation, and I will hand back to Denise and to Jim, and I believe we've got half an hour left for questions and answers.
Thank you, Simon.